Who's actually going to get the most out of the Focal Alpha 80 Evo monitors and the accompanying Sub 1, and who would be better off skipping them? Is the price justified for the average home studio creator, or does it belong in a more professional setting? Those are the questions I hear most often when people start looking at high-end near-field monitors. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first sat down to compare the Alpha 80 Evo pair with the Sub 1, the thing that stuck out was the whole system's intent. You're getting a full-range solution that's meant to sit on a desk or be wall-mounted, with a dedicated sub for that low-end punch you normally lose on small drivers. That promise sounds great, but the real question is whether it translates into everyday workflow without demanding a massive room or a budget-blown acoustic treatment plan. Let's start with the practical side of setting them up. The 8-inch Slatefiber cone woofers are fairly large for a near-field monitor, which means they'll move more air than a typical 5-inch desktop unit. In my own mix room, which is about 1,210 feet, I was able to place the Alpha 80S on stands about a foot away from the listening position, and the Sub 1 tucked under the desk on its own small stand. The 3 inputs XLR, inch TRS, and RCA made it painless to drop the monitors into an existing audio interface setup. I didn't have to chase adapters, and the automatic standby mode kicked in when I stopped playback for more than 10 seconds, which is a nice energy-saving touch. Now, the strengths become clearer once you actually start mixing. The dual Class D amplifiers give each speaker a clean, distortion-free drive that feels tight at high volumes. When I cranked the mix to a level where you can hear every simple detail, the mids and highs stayed articulate without the harshness you sometimes get from cheaper active monitors. The subwoofer, with its own dedicated amp, adds a solid foundation that lets you hear the low end of a bass synth or a kick drum without the boomy feeling that can mask the rest of the mix. For genres like electronic music, hip-hop, or any production that leans heavily on sub-bass, having that extra 8-inch driver can be the difference between a mix that translates well on a club system and one that falls flat. That said, there are a few hidden trade-offs that people often overlook. First, the physical size. The Alpha 80S are larger than the typical 5-inch near-field monitors, which means you need a bit more desk real estate or wall space. In a cramped apartment studio, those monitors can dominate the visual field and even cause reflections if you don't have proper absorption panels. Second, the Sub 1's presence is a double-edged sword. While it adds depth, it also demands you tune the crossover correctly. If you set it too high, you'll start hearing overlap with the Alpha 80S, which can muddy the low mids. I found the sweet spot around 80 Hz, but that required a quick ear training session and a few test tracks. For someone who just wants plug-and-play monitors and isn't comfortable tweaking sub-settings, the extra step might feel like a hassle. Who should walk away with these monitors? If you're a semi-professional producer, a sound designer, or a mixing engineer who already has a decent acoustic environment and wants more authority in the low end without buying a massive 12-inch studio monitor pair, the Alpha 80 Evo plus Sub 1 combo is a solid step up. It's also a good match for podcasters or video editors who occasionally need to check music tracks or sound effects that dip into the sub-bass region. The monitors give you a realistic sense of what a listener will hear on consumer speakers. Who should skip? If you're a bedroom hobbyist with a tiny desk and no room for acoustic treatment, you might be better served by a smaller active monitor that fits your space and budget. The Alpha 80S size and the need to manage a subwoofer's crossover could be overkill if you're just recording vocals or acoustic guitar and never dive deep into bass-heavy genres. Also, if you're on a tight budget, remember, you're paying for 2 monitors and a sub. There are other reputable brands that offer a single 7-inch monitor that covers most of the same frequency range for a lower price point. From a value perspective, the price tag starts to make sense when you break down what you're actually buying. You get 2 fully active monitors with built-in dual Class D amps, 3 flexible input options, and a dedicated subwoofer with its own power source, all for a single package. That's a lot of hardware you'd otherwise have to source separately, and the integration between the monitors and the sub is engineered to keep phase alignment tight, which helps keep the stereo image focused. The fact that the system has a 4.5-star rating from a small but dedicated user base suggests that those who have taken the time to set it up are generally happy with the sound and the convenience. In day-to-day use, the monitors hold up well. I ran A.